Hi guys, how are we? Hope you're well. Um, Konsokija here, Inspire YG. YG is an acronym for Young Generation. I started off this page with hope to inspire and give hope, um, and just encourage people who, especially young people who have big dreams, to go after them. Um, in my early 20s, I sat down and I thought, I've always known I have big dreams, but in my early 20s, I just thought, hey, I have big dreams and I need to go and pursue them. And so I have done well, I did that. And I had my ups and downs, but I had success. And so the ups and downs were lessons, so they were also equally as important as the successes. So no complaints at all. Now today's video is going to be a bit different. First and foremost, I have not had a very good weekend. I like to be honest. um I'm sure other people have, probably some people have had a good weekend. I'm happy. I would be happy to hear that. But I also know there's some who've had even probably a more challenging weekend. So here we are. It's another week. We're grateful that we're here. So today's video is going to be a bit different. And so for those who are popping in for the first time, thank you so much for popping in. I'm also Kotsukijo Inspire YG on Facebook and on Instagram as well. If it's your first time here, you're most welcome. And I hope you enjoy, and I hope you subscribe and share with your networks. And if you're part of this family, I appreciate you for popping in and for leaving a comment and for sharing this and for always encouraging me to keep going. Today's video is going to be a bit different. I will start with something called acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am doing this video today, the Wangol people of the Rogue tribe. I would like to pay my respect to the elders present, past, present, and future, and pay my respects to all the Aboriginal people who may one day see this video, wherever you may come from. So I'm sure if you're not in Australia, you probably just wondered what I just said, and there is a train again. Anyway, this week in Australia is called NAIDOC, or was NAIDOC week. So I'm gonna elaborate that a little bit more. NAIDOC, so NAIDOC. NAIDOC is an acronym, and it means NAIDOC, National Aborigines and Islanders Day Observance Committee. So this day has roots dating back to 1938. I'm looking at my laptop just to make sure I've got the facts. It has its roots dating back to 1938, which at the time was called the Day of Mourning, and then it became a week long by 1975. So basically this week is used, placed right there on the first week of July. Basically from this year was from the 4th to 11th. So today is the last day of celebrating the history, the culture, the achievements of the first Australians, namely Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So I want to give a bit of background of my history, or my understanding of the culture. And Australia in itself is actually very multicultural. Australia is very diverse. And to give a bit of background of my story and how my journey was, and coming to this country and learning and understanding the cultures and the diversity and the multiculturalism, I don't think I was prepared for for what I saw when I came here. I mean, what I saw, I know that sounds terrible. But what I mean is, Australia is such a rich culture, and if you're in Australia, you seriously feel like you're in maybe 100 countries at the same time, because for every 10 people you meet, chances are 7 of them are from different nationalities, or they can trace their history or their background in another country, or probably second or third generation in another country. Sorry. What I learned was obviously Australia is a colonized country, but I did not study history in school back in Kenya, and so I did not know much about the history of Australia and the first Australians especially. My introduction was when I went to uni. Now, for those who who are part of this page and who've been here for a long time, you know that I've studied social work. So I've done a Bachelor of Social Work, and if you study social work in Australia, I'm sure it is very different from other countries, but studying social work in Australia, at least the first 2 years, you have to study the history of the country, and rightfully so. Social work is a course that you do if you want to work with the community in different facets, in different fields. So how will you work with the community if you don't know the history of that society? So it did make a lot of sense that the first 2 years of the course was just about the history of Australia, but more so the history of Australian people. When I say Australian people, is everybody. So it's the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are the first Australians, and then you would start learning about the immigration and how it started, different ways of people coming to Australia from different countries and how that was. But I have to say that my first introduction of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, or at least first Australians, was on my first flight to Australia. So I was on the flight, and sometimes you get bored and you think, let me watch a movie. And I just saw this movie. It was called Sapphires. I think I'll put a link here for anybody. Not a link, like a picture of the movie if anybody want to look it up. It was called The Sapphires. So the 3 beautiful, gorgeous ladies on the cover of the movie. And I'm just thinking, where are they from? you know how you look at people and you start thinking, oh, where could they be from? They looked gorgeous. But I had never seen people with those kind of features, like facial features especially. They were very distinct. So I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, they don't look Africans. They don't look African Americans. They don't look like people I have seen before. But I'm just thinking, they're gorgeous, and I want to watch this movie just to see if I can understand where it's from, what's the story, because I want to know who are these people. And by the time the movie was ending, I was like, wow, okay. Because obviously the movie made me realize they're Australians. And in my world, like in my imagination, I had this feeling that Australia was like going to the UK. Like I really just thought I thought there were more Caucasians than any other race of people. So I was psychologically somehow prepared to be different, or to look different, or to just be so distinct when I landed here. And then I found out that that this country is so diverse that you will literally see people from all over the world. But what I'm trying to say was, it was a shock to me to learn that was my introduction of the Aboriginal people from the Sapphire movie. But then when I went to uni, no, I started off at college. When I went to college, then I realized I couldn't see people who looked like those girls in that movie. So I didn't know who to ask, because then I thought that was gonna be weird, because people can act movies, but it doesn't necessarily mean they will live in that country. They will live everywhere in that country. They could just be in other areas. So I didn't ask, but I just thought, sorry, today this is too noisy today. I just don't know. Anyway, but I just thought it was quite interesting. Anyway, then I went to uni, and same thing. I couldn't see majority of people who look like those girls I had seen in that movie. So, but when I was at uni now, I got a better understanding, because part of the study, as you study about the history of Australia, you're going to learn a lot. And I mean, the shock on me was that most of my classmates, who are Australians, the things I was finding shocking in the as we were studying the history of Australia, they were equally as shocked. And I would wonder, why are you shocked? This is your country. But then they made me understand that these are not things they studied at school as well. So it's almost like they have studied all their life, and then they come to uni, and then they're learning new things about their country. As much as it's shocking for me as an immigrant, it's shocking to them as well. So I found that quite interesting. I really don't understand. I couldn't understand, but I cannot sit here and actually do justice talking about the history of Australia. That is probably going to take a whole day. But I have a feeling one of these fine days I'm going to meet up with maybe an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander elder, and I'll sit down with them and maybe from their point of view just have a conversation with them about the history of their country, because I think they would do it more justice than I would. But talking about today, no, what I was going to say was also when I was at uni, it was just the history is so rich. It's so rich, but it's also so deep, for lack of a better word. Most of the time when we were in class, and we would get visitors to come in to speak to us about the history of the Aboriginal or the first Australians, and most of the time I would be choked up for the things they would be sharing. I would have a headache. I would cry because of how heavy and deep the subjects were, and I felt like I needed a disclaimer before I did the course. But then again, it made me feel like, should I have done more due diligence? But then you think, when you're an international student traveling to a new country, yes, you look up the laws, you look up the schools, you look up accommodation, you look up the weather, but rarely do you think about, let me Google about the history of a country and start learning about the history. So those are some of the things that you might have to learn when you get there, which was the case for my case. But anyway, this year's theme of NAIDOC Day was Healing Country, and to them, to the Aboriginal people, it means finally resolving many of the outstanding injustices which impact on the lives of the first Australians. And I know that, like I said, one day I'll definitely have to link up with an elder, because I am passionate about cultures and I love to learn people's culture and their way of life and their way of being. And us Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders cultures are rich, and they're just like our African cultures. Like, you know how, like, even in Africa is a continent. I can't even do any justice talking about African cultures. Let me just go home. Kenya, we have like 44, 43, 2 now. I don't know, they keep changing. 40 something different cultures, different kind of people in terms of culture, beliefs, practices, spiritual rituals, or whatever you might call it, and even languages, which are powerful. And when I came here and I learned about the history of the Aboriginal people and how, like, let's say you're in Strathfield or you're in Campsie or you're in Belmore, like the suburbs you are in, those were actually countries, and they had their languages, they had their way of doing things, they had their way of teaching children. They just like the way we have our cultures, they had their cultures. They also have, places they consider sacred. Like, I remember there is something called Ayers Rock. So Ayers Rock is like this huge red, I'm gonna put a picture of it here. You can see it. I think people pronounce it Uluru. That's how I pronounce it, but it's called Ayers Rock. And there has been like a lot of controversy. I remember seeing an article saying that there was so it's around a national park, and it was issued a ban because it was very controversial. The ban on a controversial practice of climbing the Ionic rock. So the people, especially tourists, would go and climb on it. But I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't think people should be climbing on that. Like, even before I knew it had, like it was a sacred, um, you know, a sacred thing, just looking at it, I just felt, I was looking for the word they had used for it. Sorry guys, yeah, I can see it. Anyway, I'll put a picture of the of the Ayers Rock here, and you can have a look. So eventually it was banned, but it's funny because it has some, according to the first Australians, Aboriginal people, it has some deep significance to them. Like, I mean, cultural, deep cultural significance. And it reminded me, like, in my culture, there's a tree called Mogumo tree. Now, that Mogumo tree, like, it has a lot of deep cultural references where it's actually said you cannot cut it, and if it falls on itself, that means there will be a big tragedy in the community. And it actually, I don't know, but it actually works. That's, for some reason, every time it falls, like, they say something major is going to happen, like some tragedy, some significant person might pass away. It just has some traditional and deep cultural connotation, that Mogumo tree. And to me, when I saw these Ayers Rock, the first time I saw it, I was just like, yeah, that does look like it is something that could have some cultural or deep spiritual meaning. I don't know, but I could not believe when I had the people used to climb on top of it. And so it was actually banned, so now it's illegal, but it was mostly tourists who would do it. And the funny thing is, I read somewhere that people would be given a choice. So you'll be told, I mean, you will be told you can climb it, but then you will be discouraged not to climb it. And I'm like, if you give me a choice to do something, chances are, if I don't know the importance or the implication or what it means, I'm just going to take the option, you know. So I think it's just lack of understanding, but I feel like as international students, we have that. We must have that. We must find it important and significant to learn about the culture of the people, um, around us, and especially if we move to their country. The same way I would expect people, like visitors who come to Kenya, to actually respect Kenyans, and you know, their values, their way of life, and their way of being, and things that they value, to value them as well. So yeah, that's interesting. But I just thought there's no way this day could have ended without me having to acknowledge the first Australians, because I feel like I wouldn't be here if it were not for them. And in terms of them taking care of their country, and you know, their land, their waters, their seas, and everything else. This has been amazing. But like I said, I'm gonna definitely, one of these fine days or in the future, have a conversation with an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander elder, and understand deeper how international students especially could learn more about first Australians culture, so that they're well able to you know, to be able to immerse well, and integrate with the community, or at least understand the culture of the people they are around. So thank you so much for popping in. Please don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to share this, especially for someone who wants to learn something new about Australian history. And thank you so much. God bless you. Bye.